Hi everyone, today we're doing 7.2 day 1. We're talking about angles and the unit circle. Your essential question says, how do you identify angles on a coordinate plane? We're going to start by talking about some vocab. Today you are going to have an x and y axis, and then you're going to have an angle drawn on it. The first thing you'll notice about your angle, it has this initial side. That's just like its starting point. It'll always be right there on the positive side of your x-axis. And then we have the terminal side, which is where it ends. Together they form an angle. For this one, your angle is drawn on the inside of it. This is called the standard position of your angle, and that's kind of what we're doing today. All right, our goal for today is to figure out how big our angles are. And they're going to be drawn on this coordinate plane for all of the examples you do today. So I want to talk about how you figure out where the numbers go and how big your angle is. Now, if you have a positive angle, you are going to start, well, you'll always start with this side here. Your angle will always start on that side, and that side will always be 0. So I know this is 0 degrees. Generally speaking, our angles will travel this way if they're positive, and the top will have 90, and then we'll have 180, and we'll have 270 on the bottom. Notice that between 0 and 90, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 sections. So each of those sections represents 10 degrees. So if I wanted to number them each individually, we'll go 10, we'd go 20, we'd go 30. Each of my pegs or my spokes on my wheel will go up by 10 until I reach 90. Now this is the same all the way around. So after 90, we'd have 100, 110, 120, 130, 140, 150, 160, 170, 180. We can also refer to our angles going the opposite direction. I'm going to erase a little bit. By a little bit, I mean a lot of it. So our angles would still start at the same side, but they would go in the opposite direction. So if you have an angle that goes this way, generally it's negative, and we just number it backwards. So we'll still have 0 here. Let's use an actual pen. But then at the bottom, you'll have negative 90, you'll have negative 180, and you'll have negative 270 on the top. And again, they go up by 10. So this would be 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. The only difference is it would be negative 10, negative 20, negative 30. You can still count them the same way backwards, just go up by 10s. Just know that your final answer is going to be negative if it's going in that direction. All right, we are going to talk a little bit more about positive angles, negative angles, and angles that are bigger than 360. Again, like before, if you're doing a positive angle, you are going to go ahead and label them with 0, 90, 180, oops, hold on, clicking the wrong things, and 270. Let's actually write the right number. And then your angles are going to travel counterclockwise, so they'll go that way. Again, my positive angles should be between 0 and 360. So we'd have 0 is less than theta, which is less than 360. Technically, this 360 number is also at the same spot as 0. So if you had an angle that went all the way around and touched that line again, it would be 360 degrees. For your negative angles, again, we're going to label them 0. Oops, use my pen. Negative 90, negative 180, and negative 270. And generally speaking, they go that way. They go backwards in the opposite direction. Again, these ones are going to be between negative 360 and 0. They're going to be negative. My last one is going to be things that are bigger than 360. I want these to just be bigger than 360. For these ones, they'll generally be like a circle that like overlaps somehow, so it kind of goes past your normal point. Again, the way I drew it, I still had 0, 90, 180, and 360. Now, because it starts this way, when I hit my 0 line again, I'm at 360, and it goes backwards. Excuse me, I just realized this is 270. So my number will be bigger than 360 because remember this is 0/360. To find this angle, you can take your theta And then you're going to add to it 360. Now you can add 360 once and it might work, but if you're using a negative number, you'll need 360 more than once. So we're going to call 360 K, and K just means like the number of times you add 360. So I could do 0 plus 360 plus 360 plus 360, and K would be like 3. You don't really have to worry about that so much. What I would do is I would do either your positive number or your negative number and just add 360 to it until you get a number that's bigger than 360. All right, we are going to go ahead and talk about our first example. We're going to label our red angle as described below. First, we're going to label it with a positive angle that's less than 360. So again, if I'm doing positive, remember that means that this part is 0, 90, 180, and 270. And we know that each of our spokes represents 10 degrees. So if I go this far and I'm at 90, then I'm going to have 10, 20, 30 more. So 90 plus 30, or if you want to count by tens, you'd have 90, 100, 110, 120 to get to your final angle. And that's going to be my total angle measure. Now, if I want to figure out my negative angle, I kind of have two options. All right, I'm going to switch colors for this. So for my first option, you could do your angle that you found, so theta minus 360. In this case, I would do 120 minus 360. And when I do that, I get negative 240. And that would be my final answer for my negative angle, is negative 240. You could also renumber your, because I switched colors, I can't erase. You can renumber your circle here, and you could have 0, negative 90, negative 180, and negative 270. And then you could count it the same way. So, all right, I go all the way to 80 to get to it, and then I go 80, 180, 190, 200, 210, 220, 230, 240 to get to that final point. So either one works. Your answer should be negative. My last part, if I want to have an angle greater than 360, I'm going to take either my positive or my negative answer and add 360 to it until I get a number bigger than 360. So let's take the positive one. I'm going to do 120 plus 360. When I do 120 plus 360, I get 480 as my final answer. Now, you kind of have more than one answer for this one, because I could add 360 to 480 and get a bigger number and a bigger number. It doesn't really matter how many times you add it, as long as your number is bigger than 360. I would stop as soon as my number is bigger than 360, because that means I don't have to do a lot of work. Notice if you chose your negative number to start with, so if I do negative 240 plus 360, I get 120. And because that's still not bigger than 360, I would add 360 one more time. And we would get 480 as well. So they are the same angle. Again, you could add 360 one more time, but you definitely don't have to. All right, we have our last one. It says label the red angle as described below. Notice that in my picture, my angle, it's going backwards. So we already have it ready to like figure out what the negative angle is going to be. I'm going to go ahead and label it with the negative numbers. So we're going to have 0, negative 90, negative 180, and negative 270 at the top. Notice that it goes down to negative 90, and then it's 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 more. So if you go negative 90, you have negative 100, negative 110, negative 120, negative 130, negative 140. If you want to add those, you would do negative 90 plus negative 50. Just make sure your numbers are negative when you stop. So negative 90 plus negative 50 gives me negative 140. All right, to find my positive angle, you can go ahead and relabel your circle if you want. So you'd have 0, 90, 180, and 270. Again, positive would go this way. I noticed that it makes it all the way to 180, and that's 10, 20, 30, 40 more. So 180 plus 40, and 180 plus 40 gives me 220. And that would be my positive angle. Again, for my last one, you just have to figure out what an angle measure greater than 360 would be. I'm going to start with my positive angle just because it's a little less work. We're going to do 220 plus 360, and you get 580. Again, I'm going to stop as soon as I find one answer that is bigger than 360. I could keep adding 360, but I don't have to. Again, if this number, if we start with a -1 instead, -140, I would just end up adding 360 once. And when I do that, I get 220. Oh, it should be an equals. I would add 360 again, and that would give me 580 as well. So either one you want to start with will work. All right, that is all I have for you today. Thank you for watching. If you have questions on your homework or if you need help along the way, please don't hesitate to reach out and ask.